You've been doing NoFap for a while, things are going great. You've had this nice streak going on, maybe a couple of weeks, and then suddenly your mind starts telling you, hey, you know what? I guess we could just take a little peek at something. Nothing too excessive, not like full hardcore fetish stuff, but just like a girl that is solo, just a girl playing with herself, something like that. And we'll just do it to sort of like get our arousal flowing, because that will make me feel energetic and it will make me feel great. So that's not that bad. I can just take a little peek like that. I won't relapse. I won't actually ejaculate, just a little peek. And so you start taking a little peek, but then you tell yourself, well, I guess I could watch one more little video, maybe something slightly dirtier. So then you watch another video, then you watch another video, and before you know it, you are fapping to full-blown cuckold porn and you have relapsed. And you feel horrible about yourself. Guys, in this video I'm going to talk about the so-called just a peek phenomenon. The phenomenon where you try to lie to yourself and tell yourself that it's not a big deal. But somewhere deep down inside we already know that it's a big deal and that it is going to mess us up, that it's going to make us relapse, but still we keep doing it. So in this video I wanted to talk about why taking just a peek is a bad thing. And perhaps more importantly, perhaps more useful, the thing you really want to know. What can we actually do about it to prevent this from happening? So first of all, the first point about why this is so bad, I honestly think I don't really even need to say this much about it, because you probably already know that it's bad yourself. You probably know that this is something that leads you to relapse, right? And I can tell you that this is not just something that happens to you. It happens to me as well. I've had so many people DM me or leave a reaction in the comments of one of my videos, or people that I see in other YouTube videos. It is that simple, there's no way around it. Taking just a peek, it makes people relapse. You watch one video, then you want to watch more, etc., etc. And even if you manage to control yourself, but you just take one peek at one video, you don't play with yourself, and then you close the video down and you go back to work. Even then, it usually tends to mess us up, because what we see happening a lot is that like several hours down the line, later in the day, then suddenly you do start to get like these very strong, uncontrollable urges, right? Maybe the next day. And so even if you don't relapse right away, it is probably going to make you relapse like somewhere later in that day or the next day. It is going to make you a lot more likely to relapse at a later point. And even if you technically would bring up the discipline to not do it, then still you would get those insanely strong urges that just make you feel horrible. And so it's really not going to make things better, right? It is, no matter how you put it, no matter what exactly happens, this is the truth. It is going to make it so much harder for you. So I think the first point is you have to realize that really taking just a peek is an illusion, right? It is a lie that we try to tell ourselves in the moment. It's an excuse because we want to engorge in our bad habit just a little bit, but we know that we shouldn't do it. So realize that, guys, just don't do it. Now that is easier said than done. I realize that. So that brings us to the next point. What can we actually do about it to prevent us from making up these excuses and to actually do it? And I think that a lot of this actually has to do with subconscious behaviors. A lot of the time where we sort of lie to ourselves, it is not necessarily because we want to lie to ourselves, but it's more that it's as if there's different voices in our head, right? As if there's different modes in which our brain can operate. And sometimes we look at things from one perspective and sometimes we look at things from another perspective. You probably recognize this with like anything in life. And usually the perspective of, I know that taking just a peek is not a viable thing. That is the perspective that comes too late. That is the perspective that comes in hindsight, or when you are talking about it logically, like right now. Most of us watching this video right now are probably on the same page that, taking just a peek is not a great idea, right? You probably agree with me right now. But then, tomorrow or next week, for some reason, you do still convince yourself that taking a peek is a good idea. And then you end up messing up again. And then in hindsight, you tell yourself again, oh, it was such a bad idea. I knew that it was a bad idea. Why did I do it? And here is the thing. This largely has to do with subconscious or almost automatic behaviors of things that we do in our lives. So many of the things we do is just subconscious, right? There are certain things that we do, certain behaviors, certain feelings that we have that lead us to do certain things. That lead us to, for example, try to tell ourselves that taking a peek is not such a bad thing. And so what you need to do is actually try to identify the situations in which you are tempted to take just a peek. And there's two big things you need to ask yourself. The first thing is, what were you doing? So maybe you were browsing the internet, maybe you were playing a video game, maybe you were just sitting, being bored, scrolling through social media, whatever it is. What were you doing? Second question is, what were you feeling? So were you feeling bored? Were you feeling depressed? Maybe a little bit depressed. Were you feeling socially anxious? Maybe you were thinking about this thing you had to do tomorrow or later that day, and you started to panic, feeling socially anxious, and then you felt tempted to do the dirty deeds. So maybe you cannot just come up with these things at the spot. Maybe if you try to recall what happened the last time you were trying to just take a peek, you don't remember it. But if you don't, try your best. Try your best to remember what happens during situations like these. And if you don't, then do it the next time, right? Don't use this as an excuse to start making mistakes, but keep it in mind. And the next time you do take a peek, or even if you just feel tempted to take a peek, I'm not saying you should actually necessarily do it. Again, don't use this as an excuse. But if you feel the temptation, if you notice yourself starting to tell yourself, hey, what if I just take a little peek? Be aware of it, and then write down these two things. What are you doing, and what are you feeling? Because the more that you start to become aware of what you were feeling and what you were doing, the easier it becomes to spot your subconscious behavior. The easier it becomes that next time when you sort of operate automatically and try to tell yourself that you want to take a peek, it becomes easier to spot these situations and be like, hey, wait a second, I'm trying to make up excuses right now, and to sort of consciously take control of that and to not actually do it. But also, when you find out what it is that you are doing and what it is that you are feeling, you can try to come up with alternatives. You can start to think about, hey, if this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm feeling, what is it that I really want? So for example, a lot of the times it might be something simple, like I was browsing the internet, I was browsing 4chan, or I was scrolling through social media. What was I feeling? Well, nothing particular. I was kind of feeling bored. Well, what is it that you really want in a situation like that? What it is that you really want is you sort of want to distract yourself, and you sort of just want to feel better, right? And so your subconscious mind is trying to convince you, well, I know something that's going to make you feel better, haha. And that's where it's trying to sort of come up with these excuses to do it. But there's other things you can do as well to make you feel better. And so once you've identified what it is that really is the problem, you can start to come up with alternatives that you can do that, for example, also make you feel better, to prevent you from actually going towards watching porn. So what it really is that is going to make you feel better, I guess that's personal, man. You know, it depends. I mean, obviously some things are better than others. You know, you might not want to try to use heroin to make you feel better or something. You know, objectively speaking, that's something I would not recommend. But try to think about what it is that you like to do. So for example, maybe that is something as simple as playing a video game. Distract yourself. Well, not just distract yourself, but make yourself feel better by playing a video game. And again, you know, there's a fine line between there's a vague line, not a fine line, a vague line between what is good and what isn't. Don't play video games for 10 hours a day. You know, it's also not that great from a dopamine perspective, but playing a video game doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. You had a long work day, you know, you've worked towards your purpose, you're feeling great, and then your instincts start saying, I want to distract myself. Well, distract yourself by playing a video game. That's fine. Or maybe do something like work out. To people who are not used to working out, they don't know what it's like, but working out can really make you feel great. And so when you are in one of these moods where you sort of feel bored and browsing the internet, and really what it is that you really want is to make yourself feel better, well, guys, exercising is going to make you feel better. There's so many things you can do. Again, this is a personal thing. This is a question you are going to have to ask yourself. This is a solution you are going to have to come up with yourself. But ask yourself, what is the problem? And then try to come up with other things that you could do to answer that problem that isn't watching porn or one of your other bad behaviors that you are trying to quit. Try to come up with alternatives. So really, to summarize this video, the problem of just taking a peek is, first of all, you need to realize that it is a problem, right? You need to acknowledge the problem. Taking just a peek is an excuse. It's probably not going to work. Then you need to ask yourself, you need to sort of identify what is really going on. You do so by asking yourself, what was I doing? What was I feeling while I was trying to just take a peek? Then, when you've asked yourself these questions, try to come up with other things that you can do instead of watching porn. I think if you follow these steps that it is going to make a big difference. Don't expect a miracle cure. It is a process that will take time. It is not that if you ask yourself that question once that suddenly you have magical control over your mindset and you will never be tempted to take a peek again. No, but it will make it easier. And guys, if you actually do end up relapsing, don't worry too much about it. It happens to all of us. I've made a video on this. I've made several videos actually, but I think this video can really help. So if you occasionally relapse, you feel bad about it, watch this video. It's a video about what you can do to pick yourself back up from a relapse, to recover and to keep going. I think it can really help you out. So check it out. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.